So come into your seated position and make sure it's a position that you feel you can kind of release your groins, your knees, your thighs. Your lower back is either concave or flat, it's not rounded out. Support yourself if you need to. Make sure that you have a solid base for your seated pose so that we can really tap into the lightness of the spine. And just spend a little time perfecting that seated position, and once you find it, join your hands in front of your heart and close your eyes. So we're coming into restorative practice, which is really not about striving. It's not about stretching. It's really about observation and acceptance and surrender. Just begin to tune in to yourself like you're a radio, an old-fashioned radio, and you're just adjusting the dial ever so slightly so you can really listen clearly. You can kind of tune away the static. Just kind of taking some time to acknowledge the breathing, the automatic unconditioned breathing that you don't have to strive for, the breath that is always there whether or not you're aware of it. Acknowledge your physical body. We're going to talk a lot about our kind of default resistances today. So just noticing where there's little places that are maybe a little frozen or locked up or clenching, gripping. You don't have to do anything with this information, just noticing. And then just taking some time with the mind. This practice is really about stilling the fluctuations of thought. And in the morning, there are many fluctuations. And again, not striving to quiet the mind, just noticing the busyness of the mind. Noticing how the attention to the breathing and the body can start to still those waves of thought. And then finally checking in with any tension, any hardness around the heart space. Let's see if you can maintain the lift and spread of your chest as you bow towards your heart. Move your hands down to your thighs. Raise your head, let your eyes come open. And welcome. So this practice will be a series of poses, not as many poses as a class on a more active day. A lot of holding of poses, and like I said, it's not about stretching, it's really about surrendering bone tensions in the kind of the mind. It's about surrendering resistances and poses we know very well. And so we're going to start in child's pose. And because we're holding it for a few minutes, you want to build it up so that if you feel like it's really difficult to be in the pose, you have to use effort, you have to grip, build up the pose in a way that you can be very passive and heavy in your body. So some places that you could put some propping is between the buttocks and the heels. Some people fold a thin blanket and run it from the backs of the knees to the heels if that can relieve some knee pain or knee discomfort. Elevating the hands, the forehead, propping the torso with a bolster. These are all great ways to create a pose that's just gonna help, like hold you. So you don't hold the pose, let the pose hold you. So take some time with that. Make those finely tuned adjustments with the shape of the pose, of the physical body. And no striving, so watch for that. A lot of us, as a responsible adult, a lot of us just default into striving mode. So let yourself just be throughout this practice. And to kind of set the stage, I'm going to read to you one of my very favorite poems by Rumi, Sufi poet, very short and sweet. Be crumbled so wildflowers will come up where you are. You have been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. Observing your breath. Observing the body as you continue to hold the pose. Maybe those stony places starting to crumble. Maybe some surrender around those places of holding. Another minute here. If you're resting one cheek, just giving time to both sides so that the neck can turn in each direction. And scanning the body and shining the light of attention on the hips, the sacrum, the front ankles, the abdomen, the spine, the rib cage. If the mind is wandering, gently guide it back to breath. With your next exhale, just following that breath out as far as it goes. And at the very end of the breath, let the inhale start to help you out of the pose. We're going to transition to a couple prone postures. So we want to put a blanket where the pelvis will land in the center of the mat. And a thinly folded blanket is fine. So not a lot of height or bulk, just enough padding that you're not going to be putting bone against the hard floor. And you can lie down on your front side. Give a lot of spaciousness to your lower back by separating your feet. Take some time to roll the thighs so that you're lying down on the centers of your thighs. The kneecaps are down. And then step your elbows forward and put your palms together for Namaskarasana, the prayer pose with the hands. And then lean your forehead against your thumbs. And this is a very mild back bend. And it's a way to initiate the spine for deeper back bends in a gentle way. If we jump into heavy back bends right away, a lot of times we just create a little fight in the body. The body's not ready, and then there's more tension brought in. And try to position your head here so the neck is long and graceful, there's not a crease or a cramp in the back of the neck. Keep it long. So maybe resting closer to your hairline. And just watch for that tendency to bring effort in. It's not needed here. The legs should feel heavy, completely relaxed. The jaw should be somewhat slackened. Even when you're this passive, there's still, interestingly enough, there's resistance and tension in the body. We all default to that. So again, come back to that poem and just let your body be crumbled, knowing we've been stony for too long. If it keeps the mind occupied, you might try bringing some ujjayi breathing into this. That very gentle constriction in the back of your throat, where you can hear the breath and you can study the breath and watch for that smoothness, like there's a leak in a bike valve. Now, if the spine is still responding and still waking up, you're going to stay here. But if you're ready for a little bit more extension, you can come into a more classical Sphinx pose, tucking the elbows under the shoulders. And you might prop yourself if you have bolsters at home. This is a good one to give yourself some support to that negative space once the chest comes away from the floor. You could kind of shove a bolster behind the elbows so that you're not holding yourself up in any way. You kind of build the pose around you so that the pose can hold you once again. And since you're not supporting the head this time, be very aware of your neck position. You don't want to completely drop your head, but you don't need to see anything in front of you either. So kind of in the middle space, think about the neck being crease free. And you might close your eyes just to bring attention inside yourself. We've all heard the phrase, less is more. Let this practice be really about that philosophy. The benefit when we just kind of surrender and allow, rather than strive. We'll be here a full minute. Keeping yourself present through those doorways of attention to breath, attention to those inner sensations, acceptance of what is here and now. You might visualize your body if you were hovering over yourself. Imagine what you would see, your clothing, your position, maybe some details, the skin, pattern on your pants. And some usual suspects of tension holding are A lot of them exist in the head and face because we kind of wear our faces like masks in our social world. So the forehead, the cheeks, the jaw, and the eyes. Lots of attention there, just inviting the facial skin to descend from the forehead to the chin. Keeping your inner gaze pointed down. And we'll start to think about leaving this pose. So just kind of follow your next exhale out to completion. With the inhale that follows, you can bring enough effort to remove any propping you might have placed under the chest. And we're going to be rolling on to our left hip side. And from there, you can bend your top right leg knee. And then maybe grab something to tuck under your right knee so that it's not just floating and trying to hold itself there. So a block, a bolster, something that's substantial enough to meet that knee. And then drape your right hand over your right ribs and let your right shoulder start to move toward the floor. And at some point you might extend your right arm out perpendicular from the trunk, but part of this practice is not just assuming we can do all, so just really incrementally deepening the pose. Maybe with your hands against your right ribs, you're helping those ribs descend toward the floor. And at some point you might roll your head so you're looking straight up. And eventually you might continue and turn the head to the right. So if you're stretching, you're in the wrong class today. We don't want to be doing a full Padangusthasana, leg extended out to the side. We want everything to be very restful and surrendered so that the body can equalize on its own. And just look around like you're in a new building, walking throughout your body and just kind of checking the structural situation, noticing where there's maybe some tension, vulnerable places. This could be my real estate talking, but just kind of looking around the entire landscape of your body. Everything is equally interesting. We're not favoring one place over another. If you're still hand on your rib cage, you might play with what happens when you extend the arm. Are you ready for that? Does it continue to open you in a passive way? Or does it put you in stress mode, which of course causes the mind to flee? Be crumbled so that wildflowers can grow where you are. Just a couple more breaths here and just play with those exhales, just drain them out. As far as you took your pose, you can start to reverse those steps. If you extended your right arm, you're going to bring the hand back onto your side body. You can start to kind of bring your right shoulder back above your left. You can extend your right leg. You're going to come back onto your belly and keep rolling onto your right side. Once you're on your right side, bend the left knee and support the left knee with a block, a blanket, a bolster, whatever meets that knee and holds you there. Put your left hand on your side waist and then start to let your left shoulder fall toward the floor. A lot of our resistances in the body are left over from previous circumstances that no longer apply. We're very good at self-protection for good reason, but a lot of these protective measures in the body are no longer relevant. So this is a chance, this is a laboratory to study all that holding that you do really unnecessarily. Letting the instinct of your body guide you, maybe unfolding that left arm, maybe rolling the head to the left, maybe choosing to stay put. Just let the next few breaths empty, like the bath water draining from the tub. You don't have to force it out, just watch it empty completely. If you did unfold your arm, just start to bring your hand back to your side body. Start to move that left shoulder back above the right shoulder. You can extend your top leg. We're going to be transitioning onto our backs, but we actually want to create a little more height underneath us. So the blanket you've laid down, double it up so you're folding it once. And then you can rest your lower back on that height. And this is a fine place to substitute with a bolster if you own one. And once you're on your back, take a moment to adjust the torso so you're long. Sometimes we get on the floor and we end up kind of like someone dropped us there and we're not aligned. So give yourself some spaciousness, some symmetry. And we're going to come into reclining child's pose with the elevated sacrum, which will help us drop those thighs in nice and close. But that being said, if you have limitations in the knees or the hips, you could put a blanket now also on top of you so it runs where the hip creases fold, and that's a nice way to build the pose up to meet your needs. So that's a nice modification, is to throw a blanket over your kind of your lap area. Yep, good. I'm glad some of you did that. And now raise the feet from the floor. And you can passively just kind of let your legs do their thing and just keep your hands on your belly, or you could take hold of your shins if that's more supportive, but just make sure you're not striving, that you're not tugging and pulling and trying to deepen and improve. That's not this class. So we're looking for passivity, we're looking for ease, we're trying to minimize holding and gripping. We don't want the body to hold itself. So I've actually separated my knees wider today, and I'm holding the backs of my knees. For me, that's more passive than anything else that I would do. Try to keep the chin tilted toward your chest so the neck remains long and fluid. Abdomen should be soft. And I know, Kathleen, you have to hold that leg. So next time, another day, what you could do to make this even more passive is to prop your feet against the wall so that you have ultimate support. Okay, and just run a body scan here. These poses, the tensions aren't so obvious. What are the hips saying? What are they doing? Is the belly supple, or is there visceral tension in the belly, limited breath expansion? How are those tensions in your face? What about the throat? And from here, we're going to come into Urdhva Paschimottanasana. This is the upward forward fold. So you can extend your arms overhead. And again, don't be super active with the arms. If the elbows bend today, that's great. Just heavy arms overhead. And then start to extend the legs. And once the legs are extended, shift the feet toward the head side so that you have kind of gravity working to your advantage, so that we come into a forward bend in a passive way, orienting ourselves in space so that gravity can do what effort usually does in another class. Again, you don't need perfect straight legs today. And notice how every time you exhale, there's a chance to go deeper. And not in a striving way, in a way that only surrender will bring about. This pose is very supportive to the parasympathetic nervous system, helping us move into rest and digest mode. So it's a brain quieting pose. The chin should still be kind of angled toward the chest. Just imagine your arms are made of cement. Your shoulder girdle is cement. And by that, I'm referring to the weight, not the stoniness. Just feel the heaviness of the arms and shoulders. Still porous, but very heavy. And just take your last couple of exhales here, draining the breaths in a passive way, just letting the breaths empty from rib cage, from the lungs. And very gently and slowly start to fold the legs, start to lower the feet. And we're gonna stay with feet grounded and the hips slightly elevated. If you would like a little more height under your lower back, you could tuck a block or a second blanket there. But we'll be in passive bridge pose. So feet are wide, your shins are vertical, your knees are falling toward each other. And you can unfold your arms, palms turned up. Soothing the back after that forward bend with a very mild back bend. attempt to join your feet just closer together, not completely. And curl the tailbone into your body so that you can, in a supportive way, raise your hips to remove whatever is underneath you. And so you should be flat on the ground at this point. We're going to do dead bug. And this is about arranging our forelimbs in space in the gravity field so that we can engage ball and socket joints of the femur heads into the hips and the long arm bones into shoulder sockets. So you're going to pick up your feet one at a time. Extend your legs. Extend your arms, but right away tap into the points of the hips and shoulders as your anchors. So you're going to make small adjustments with the limbs until you're as passive as you can be holding the limbs in space. Of course, it requires some effort, but you're kind of trying to zero in on where there's least effort. Again, you don't have to have perfectly straight legs. And just allow the ball of the long femur bones, the long arm bones to sink into the socket. So some of you have an angle on the arms. Just really try to have vertical limbs so that you're in a very passive orientation. Think about a building having pillars. The pillars are vertical, they're not diagonal because it's more structurally integrous. Giving your limbs a break from the extremity points to more of the midline. So letting all the blood flow move from the toes and the fingers. We face gravity the other direction most of the time. So just a break from gravity here. The flesh also moves in the other direction most of the time. Feel the refreshing sensation of your flesh meeting gravity in this way. And it does require some effort to hold the limbs here. So notice if you're absorbing that in the face and minimize any tension from the face. And now go ahead and start to bring the limbs down slowly, not all at once, safely. Just pause for a moment. We're going to be creating Supta Baddha Konasana, reclining bound angle pose. So help yourself to either side of your body. We're going to use a little pranayama support, which means we're going to make a support for the spine. So a bolster is a good one, but again, most of us don't have those. So if you could roll a blanket, you'll achieve the same effect. A narrow, soft prop. And then you'll want to give some extra height to the head. And if you don't have lots of blankets, you could always tuck a block under your bolster or blanket so that you can elevate the head side. And you want the legs to feel cradled. So when you join the feet, make sure you're not having to hold your legs there with your inner thighs or your hips. So you might prop the knees or thighs all the way up to the hips. It's really just about where you get the most support. And you'll lie down with the pranayama support running spine-wise. And the head elevated enough that the chin angles down. And the heels toward the perineum, but again, this is really not the class to be striving for your deepest version. And then the arms will unfold with the palms up. And take some time pressing your hands into the floor to lift your shoulder blades towards your chest to create some support there. And once you do that, you should feel your shoulders start to descend around the contours of the bolster or rolled blanket. This is a great pose. It's a great container for observing the self, physical self, the pranayama self, which is the energy self, Anamaya kosha, which is the mind self, all these selves, all these sheaths that we can study. And even here in this very extremely supported pose, you might still have some holding in your shoulders. We're very good at rounding the shoulders to protect the heart space, metaphorically and literally. So your shoulders might still be trying to lift toward the ceiling. So let them truly descend with some weight toward the floor. Even with supported knees or hips or thighs, you might still have some gripping in the groins and the hips. Just investigate, bring that searchlight throughout your body. Is that hardened mask on your face? Or is there a softening? Just another minute here. We can only feel light if we can tap into the weight of ourselves and receive the support. And now you're going to begin to leave the pose just by helping the knees come together. Roll to your side. And you might have two blankets, you might have a bolster and a blanket, but you're going to use those again. We're going to come into cross bolsters. And so that top blanket might just be folded, and if that's the case, roll it. If you're working with one bolster and one blanket, the bolster should be the bottom part of the X shape you're going to make on your mat, and the bottom part of the X is going to run horizontally across your mat. The top part of the X will run vertically with the spine, and again, if you have a bolster, your bolster should be the bottom piece. So flip that around, Tisha, so you have the top part vertically, the bottom part horizontal. There you go. And then if you have an extra blanket, it is kind of nice to have your head on something softer than your mat. So you might put a flat blanket where your head and shoulders will be. So if you own a strap, one way we can make cross bolsters more passive is to contain the legs, which like to fly out wide, which causes a certain amount of gripping and effort and kind of pulls our attention. So make a loop with your strap. It's going to go around the ankles, and you want it to be wider than your hips. Ideally, you want, once you have your ankles in that loop, you want your feet about as wide as the edges of your mat. And then you can start to sit on your little setup, your cross bolsters, so that the highest part, the crux where those props meet, is meeting your lower back. So you might need to do a little wiggling or adjusting so that you're really hitting the lower back. Your hip points should feel like the highest points. Your head and shoulders should be heavily on the floor. And then you can extend your legs. And if your lower back says no, listen to that and keep your knees bent. And you might be able to extend your legs later, or you might not, but that's really, don't let your ego, your will drive your practice. You're surrendering to what is here and now, what the current set of circumstances are. If you get into the pose and you notice that it's not right, you're going to adjust. I just had that moment where I realized my lower back isn't truly at the peak of that height. So I need to adjust. Otherwise I would be taken out of the best experience of the pose. Adjust your chin, kind of snuggle it into the pocket between your collarbones. Be on your heels and attempt to put your toes in line with your heels. And let the strap just contain the legs in a way that keeps the legs more passive. Most of us know this pose in a more active class. It requires more effort. So just kind of accepting this wonderful supported experience and noticing how it might deepen us. Look toward your cheeks. In back bends, we tend to have attention fly up. We tend to have eyeballs fly up. So to help kind of train attention down, to keep the mind settled, look toward your cheeks. That tension around your heart, let it crumble. And we'll start to come out of the pose by gently bringing the feet in. Gently stepping out of that loop of your strap, and then keep sliding yourself toward the head side so that your lower back comes onto the floor, and you can cross your ankles and just prop them on the height just for a few moments to offset the deep back bend of that previous pose. And now we're going to come full circle and return to child's pose as the final asana before we come into Yoga Nidra. So help your knees together, roll to either side. And you might use the same supports you did in the beginning. You might not need as many. But once you get into the pose, let your body guide you into what is needed so that the pose can hold you. And no matter how you set it up, try to get your head in contact with something, whether it's the floor, a blanket, a block, really quieting down. Once you feel ready to transition, you're going to start to set up for Shavasana Yoga Nidra. So you'll be propping behind your knees with something, whether it's a blanket or a bolster. If you have lights on overhead, you might want to turn them off. If your head tends to tilt back when you're reclining, you might want to prop your head to help tilt your chin toward your chest. And you'll be lying down with the arms unfolded, maybe something over your eyes like an eye pillow. Just take a few moments to make small adjustments in your body so that the pose is one of stillness. If something is nagging at you right now, it will get worse. So make sure to take care of it and create all the support you need to sustain this pose of stillness. Putting the arms in position so that the arms don't touch the torso. Start to become aware of your whole body. Become aware of your breath, rhythmic and slow. And at this point, we're going to make a resolve for ourselves. It's just a short, simple statement in positive language, present tense. I am well, I am peaceful, I am hopeful, I am grounded. Finding one naturally, and if one doesn't come, just leave it be. It could just be I am. Repeat it 3 times mentally. Become aware of your right hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, hip, thigh, knee, calf muscle, ankle, heel, top of the foot, sole of the foot, right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Now go to the left side, become aware of the left hand thumb, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, fifth finger, palm of the hand, back of the hand, wrist, lower arm, elbow, upper arm, shoulder, armpit, waist, hip, thigh, knee, calf muscle, ankle, heel, top of the foot, sole of the foot, left big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Go to the back of the body, back of the head, back of the neck, right shoulder blade, left shoulder blade, right buttock, left buttock, right heel, left heel. Now to the front of the body, top of the head, forehead, right temple, left temple, right ear, left ear, right eyebrow, left eyebrow, middle of the eyebrows, right eye, right nostril, left nostril, whole nose, right cheek, left cheek, upper lip, lower lip, both lips together, chin, neck, right collarbone, left collarbone, right side of the chest, left side of the chest, middle of the chest, navel, upper abdomen, lower abdomen, right leg, left leg, right arm, left arm, the whole of the head, the whole body, the whole body. Become aware of your body lying on the floor. There's a point where the body is in contact with the floor. Bring awareness to that particular point of contact. The heels and the floor. Both the heels are on the floor and there's a point where they touch the floor. Now from the top of the body, the head and the floor, the back and the floor, the right hand and the floor, the left hand and the floor, the right elbow and the floor, the left elbow and the floor, the buttocks and the floor, hamstrings and the floor, heels and the floor. Imagine meeting points of the body and the floor, the whole body and the floor. The body is on the floor. Become aware of the whole body. Do not contract and do not expand. Just imagine in your mind that the body is becoming very heavy. Awaken the idea of heaviness in the body. Gradually feel the body becoming heavier and heavier. The head is becoming heavy. The right palm is heavy. Left palm is heavy. Both arms and the shoulders are heavy. The back is heavy. The buttocks and the groin are heavy. The right thigh is heavy. The left thigh is heavy. Both the kneecaps are heavy. Both legs are heavy. Both arms are heavy. The whole head is heavy. The eyes are heavy. The lips are heavy. The whole body is heavy. Keep on thinking that the whole body is heavy. Intensify the feeling of heaviness. And now gradually relax part by part. Now feel the whole body becoming lighter and lighter. The head is light, so light that it can even rise from the floor. The right and left palms are becoming lighter. Both arms and both shoulders are light. The back is light, buttocks and groin are light. The right thigh is light. The left thigh is light. The right heel and the left heel are light. The whole body is light and weightless. When your body becomes weightless, you feel as if it's rising from the floor. As if your whole body is a mass of cotton. Cotton represents lightness and steel represents heaviness. Now practice these two experiences alternately. The whole body is steel. The whole body is steel. There are no bones, marrow, or blood, just a steel frame. Change the idea. The whole body is cotton. The whole body is as light as cotton. There are no bones, marrow, or blood. Everything is composed of cotton. The whole body is as light as cotton. Again, change the idea. The whole body is like steel, heavy steel. The whole body is as light as cotton. Cotton so light it can rise up from the floor. Coming back to your resolve, recall the resolve and repeat it 3 times mentally with the same awareness, same feeling, same intensity. Visualize your whole body. Become aware of your surroundings. Say to yourself, I am practicing Yoga Nidra. I'm visualizing my body lying here on the floor. Become aware of your breathing. Start to bring some small movements into your body. Eventually allowing that movement to carry you to one side. The practice of Yoga Nidra is now complete. As you're ready, start to find your way to seated. Stacking your weight so perfectly over those sitting bones. Sitting in an upright way with energy conservation as your goal. And then join your hands in front of your heart. Soften your face into an easy smile. Smiling is more passive than frowning. And let's take a deep breath in through the nose. And let that breath go. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right, everyone. Happy end of October. I'll see you in November next week. Have a great weekend.